we're kicking off the summer with a fantastic Mexican lager, a huge brand, man, a beer that we haven't touched on yet. It's pretty surprising. We've been doing this channel for 3+ years, going on 4 years, if not 4 years already. But we've been doing it for quite a while. And we've touched on a lot of big Mexican lagers, but this one has eluded us up to now. But it eludes us no longer, for it is summertime, and it is due. Imported from wonderful, beautiful Mexico, a favorite of mine, favorite location of mine, Dos Equis Mexican Lager. This brewery is pretty historic, right? This beer itself, this particular brew, the pale lager here, not so old, but they brewed an amber beer, right? Like sort of like maybe inspired by Vienna lager. Actually.
It could be. Like the story of the brewery itself, there's not a lot that we were talking right before the review, right? That we could.
Right, there's not that much
we could find, but there's rumors.
It's a mysterious brewery.
There's rumors, right? And there's rumors enough that
there's beer rumors.
Exactly. There's enough rumors to create legends, and
to cause a beer stir.
Legend says that a gentleman called Wilhelm Hasse came as an immigrant from Germany over to Mexico in the 1890s and founded the Moctezuma, and I'm going to butcher it, but that's the best I can do. See it on here on the screen. That's how
we're doing our best here.
The interesting fact, obviously, is the name of the brewery is thought to celebrate the last of the rulers of the Aztecs population that ruled Mexico before the conquistadores came over. The conquistadores, and then took over a little bit. But what I find very interesting is that there is this German connection again, like with this extremely popular Mexican beer. That somehow is rooted again with the German tradition. And like you were saying, the original amber, the double X that was made in celebration for the 20th century, is in fact an amber beer. So yeah, the connection there with the Vienna lager or darker lagers are strong.
Well, I do recommend everybody keep their eye on the channel because we will have an episode coming on what are Mexican lagers, where we will dig into this a little bit deeper. We've touched on this actually when in our Modelo episode, I believe it was. We touched on kind of like the history of German immigration into Mexico and how that translated, or maybe it was in the Negra Modelo, it might have been that one, but how it translates to that particular beer style. So we've touched on it, but it's going to be for a really, really interesting Inside the Bracket, so keep an eye open on the channel for that one. But this, my friend, coming in at a whopping 4.5% ABV, it is an easy drinking summertime lager. Let's see what we think. Let's see how it holds up under the scrutiny. The intense scrutiny of a Beer Brackets beer review, buddy. Let's pop these caps.
Let's do it. It's time. Whoop.
It is time. Summertime.
Summertime. The best time. All right, let's do this properly.
I think I've only had this beer once before in my life, and it was years ago. So I am excited. You know, Mexican lagers are tricky ones. They tend to be really basic, right? They tend to be really simple by design.
They do.
They're meant to be crushable on a hot beach in the hot weather to be thirst quenching. And sometimes to pair well with lime and or salt, right? They surprise you sometimes, man. They have some hidden characteristics that come out, like in the Modelo.
Well spoken, my friend. Well spoken. So let's see what story this is going to tell.
Aroma cheers, buddy. What do you think? Yeah, let's see. Let's see what beer secrets lie beneath.
Okay. I will say I don't think I've ever all the other times I've had Dos Equis like has always been in.
You said I don't think I've ever smelled this beer.
No. Well, I've always had it in a bottle or in a can, but straight out of them. So this is
That's
interesting.
Right. Yeah, same thing. It is right. Like surprisingly,
it is.
There's a lot of character there.
It's a very interesting aroma because like the malt has almost like a very light character, almost like a flour tortilla. If you've ever had it, like when you open the bag.
I love how you're staying with the Mexican inspired theme.
I'm going with it. I
like it. Yeah, like a flour tortilla.
Yeah, but it's almost like, it's not baked bread. Like it's not strongly intense. Like it's just like very light.
Yeah, it's really faint.
Very faint.
Yeah.
But I think the predominant note here are the hops. And the hops are, they have this herbal character, very almost like minty. So actually very inviting. I think I'm going to start with the 2.5, my friend, because I'm enjoying the aroma. I'm really enjoying it. I'm wanting to jump in the glass. What do you think?
Yeah, floral hops, but the first thing I noticed was kind of like a very sweet kind of maltiness. I don't know if you're getting the same thing, but almost a bit of like a processed maltiness, that's sort of like very intense, sort of concentrated malt where it turns into something that's sweet, but not in a bad way. I think I've smelled that before on some like adjunct heavy beers that we've reviewed, some macro lagers before, and I've said that in a bad way, but in this, it's actually kind of nice. I don't know how natural it is, but it creates like this sort of like malty sweetness that I'm really kind of enjoying, and exactly the kind of like floral hops that you said. I'm liking it. Yeah, I'll give it, like, I'll go with a 2. Yeah, I'll stay pretty high. I was expecting a little bit lower for the aroma on this one, but we went pretty high, both of us, man. So there you go. Now, cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Let's take some sips.
Cheers to you, my friend.
Now, let's see how Dos Equis does. Okay.
Interesting. It's hard to describe.
It is, right?
It's very hard to describe because now that I took a sip like that, I definitely see that sweetness you were referring to in the aroma.
You're getting it
yeah,
now?
I'm getting it more. To me, that almost like flowery, and again, lack of a better descriptor, that flour tortilla is what I kind of like land on, or for Italians, like a piadina. A piadina, that's the other term, like because it's a very flash cooked, like very thin slice of bread that it doesn't really fully
Slim
create
bread,
like a crust. But I really like the fact that all the characters are there without being overwhelming. Even the sweetness, like you said, is there, but it just shows like for a moment and then goes away. I like the aroma a little bit more than the taste, I will say, but I think I'm still going to stay with the 2, my friend. It's a little bit better than a middle of the road beer.
I was reading something online. I don't know how accurate this is, that a couple of years ago, they changed their recipe. And I was reading on Beer Advocate, doing my beer research before. They said a lot of people were complaining that the Dos Equis that they used to know isn't the beer that currently exists. And some people were talking about adjuncts being added and like corn syrup, and how it's just sort of like slightly lower quality now than it used to be. I can't speak to that. I've only had it once before, and I really don't remember it. And it was a long time ago, so I really don't know. But I think, again, that sweetness that I'm getting does remind me of that kind of like, if you want to say like the corn syrup, but that sort of like adjuncty, sort of processed kind of maltiness that you get off those types of beers. I'm getting a little bit of that. Again, it's not in an offensive way. If that is what I'm getting, then it's done really well for what it is. And they hide it pretty well, and it balances itself out pretty well. I'm enjoying it for sure. The hoppiness, like that floral note that you mentioned. I see what you mean about like a freshly kind of like pressed tortilla, like that kind of breadiness too, for sure. I'm tempted to go 1.5, but I'm enjoying it, so I'm gonna go to a 2. I'm like, why not? Give it a 2, man. I'll match you on that one. Mouthfeel, buddy. Gonna do a little bit of a refresher here.
Let's do it. It's time.
Beer bracket tradition. All right. They really had that amazing marketing campaign like 10 years ago. Those commercials, the most interesting man in the world.
They did, yeah. I've seen a couple. Like they weren't super big in Italy.
Sharks have a week dedicated to him. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis.
That's right. You were still in Italy at that point. That's right. Okay. It really worked. That's like when I first heard about this beer.
I don't know about yours, my friend, but my variation has a strange characteristic that I haven't had in any other beer so far. Because the carbonation is very low, at least
it's very low.
So there's not a lot.
Wait,
there.
can I try and guess what you're gonna say?
Let's see if you can guess.
Are you getting like sort of like this? If you took a sip of vinegar, like an astringent kind of like tingly kind of feeling. Are you getting that a little bit combined with like a little tartness?
I definitely get the tartness, but I was going to describe it a little bit more like the same feeling you get after you take a sip off a carbonated water.
Oh, okay.
The best way I can describe it is if you had like a carbonated water that is not carbonated. I don't know if you shook it, like it took all the carbonation out, like, and you still have a little bit of that, like, almost like pungent, like refreshing feel. I can see what you were saying, like about the vinegar. I would be curious to see how this pairs with food, because that might be a different conversation. But as far as it is, I think I'm going to stay.
I think it pairs fantastically well with food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think I'm going to stay with the 1.5, my friend, because I think it needs a little bit more carbonation. And it might be just the bottle variation here that we're having, but
It might be, right? It's a very good point. We're both like reviewing the bottle here. I'm sure that has some kind of effect on the mouthfeel, of course, as we've seen in our Epic can versus bottle battles previously. I'm having a hard time describing this aside from how I said where if you sip something that's kind of like very astringent, something that's very sort of high in acid, you get kind of like that kind of sensation around your tongue. I'm getting a little bit of that. It's kind of strange. And then I see what you mean about the carbonated water. It's almost like a sensation of taking a sip of water.
mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a very light sort of like flushing of the palate a little bit. This is all very subtle. We're trying to pinpoint things out here, but it's weird. It's a strange mouthfeel. I'm actually going to go with a 1. Like, I'm not enjoying the mouthfeel on this beer that much, and it could be just pouring it out. It might be just meant to drink out of the bottle, right? Ice cold on a hot summer day, but pouring it out in the glass like we do in these beer bracket beer reviews, I'm going to go down to a 1 on the mouthfeel, buddy. But now the finish, I've got some bones to pick with this finish. I don't know about you, but what do you think?
Let's see. So I think the main note that I get
You're
on
deep
the
in beer thought.
finish, it was a very deep beer thought here on this one here. But I think the main note that I get on the finish is that slight sweetness that comes back. That bready presence is gone. There's a little bit of that floral herbal character that I was discussing, like on the aroma. I think that sweetness lingers a little bit, and that's where I know it's finish is obviously different than mouthfeel, but I think it's because there's not so much carbonation, that sweetness lingers. It's not enough to be called cloying or sticky, but it's there. And I don't know, like, I think that's probably my least favorite part. So I think I'm going to go with a 1 because everything else is well done. Like, it fades pretty quickly, but the fact that that's the only note that stays is probably, for me, it's a little bit of a flaw. What do you think, my friend?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm maybe, you never know with these bottles, right? Like, I could have one that's a lot older than yours. You never know the situation. I'm getting like this very sort of like sour note on the finish, and everything you said I'm getting as well. And maybe that sour note is the floral note that you're describing. Maybe I'm just interpreting that differently, because there definitely is this kind of sort of, and it's not to this level, but that kind of like floralness that you get off a Brett beer, like the Orval, let's say, where it's kind of like yeasty, hoppy, a little bit sour. Like, there's a faint element of that on the finish for me that I'm just not finding enjoyable. And then there's sweetness that kind of balances it out. It doesn't work that well for me as a beer finish. It's just not what I'm looking for out of a lager, and it just doesn't taste natural.
I see what you mean.
I'll go with a 1. I'll match you on a 1. I think that's fair for the finish. Now, as an overall beer experience, buddy, from beginning to end for Dos Equis, what do you think?
I was quite surprised by the notes that I got from on the aroma and on the taste. I think the mouthfeel and the finish are a little bit less surprising to me. There's other beers that in this category I would go with, but overall I think it's a very good beer. And to be honest, like, I would be very curious, given those premises, to try it with food of some sort, especially some good Mexican food, because I think that would make quite of a different impression. So I think I'm going to stick with the 2, because it's not quite the middle of the road. It's just like a little bit pushes it a little bit enough with that curiosity. So 2 I think is where I'm going to land.
For me, it is kind of middle of the road. There's nothing bad about it. Like, I harped on the finish a little bit, but even that's not bad. As an experience, I think 1 point, like, I gave it 2 2s and 2 1s. So I think just averaging it out there makes sense for me. It's fine. If you gave me one of these, I would not complain, especially on a hot summer day. If this is ice cold, give me one of these. It's fine. It's a nice beer. And I'm sure I will calculate the scores for our rating system. It might even fall into nice. I don't know. We'll see. But let's go calculate our final scores and see where we land. For Senor Alejandro, came out to a 3 on 5, which in our rating system is a good beer. A little bit ahead of nice. For myself, it was a little bit lower, middle of the road, 2.5 out of 5, which is still in the same category for us in our rating system. A good beer, which it is. I love our rating system, okay? Because these categories, they always describe the beer perfectly. You've broken it down into a science when you designed our rating system, my friend, to find these descriptors that just perfectly describe these beers. Once we get to the end of this process, it's just that one word, that one final word to describe the beer. It just works, especially when it winds up being its beer.
It's beer.
Like,
that's all you can say.
Good times. Well, let us know down below, everybody. What do you think about Dos Equis? Is it your go-to Mexican lager? What do you think about it? What do you prefer? And whatever, see that beer bell? Click that beer bell, because anytime Alessandro and I are hanging out on the beer beach here and having a beer in the summer, enjoying a nice Mexican lager, if you click that little beer bell, YouTube will let you know, and then you can pop into the pub and enjoy us with us, get a nice Dos Equis for yourself, watch along, drink along as you watch, hang out with us in the pub. So make sure to click that beer bell.
And no matter what, regardless if you click the bell or not, don't forget to close your beer brackets.
Never forget. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.